Hey guys, Joe Bonamassa here. I hope you enjoy this KTBA Artist Spotlight from the great Mr. Paul Thorn.
I am not gonna lie, your lips taste good to me. It is impossible to kiss you moderately. You keep me coming back for more time after time. You're sweet and addictive like apple pie moonshine. I grew up in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is the birthplace of Elvis. And when Elvis was a kid, he actually attended some of the exact churches I attended. My father's a Pentecostal minister, and I grew up in a church environment where I learned G, C, and D from my father in church, and I grew up playing in church. And the church experience is where I got interested in guitars. I first grabbed the guitar when I was about 12 years old, and I started making up songs, and I got in the 8th grade talent show, and I sang Lionel Richie's 3 Times a Lady, and I won first place, and I went from being a social outcast to being the most desired boy on the playground. And it never stopped. Here I am, only, still doing it. I never took lessons on guitar. In fact, I can't read music. I play by ear. And and I just picked up things from local guitar players, because at the kind of churches I grew up in, it ain't like today where you got to audition to be in the band. At our church, if you had a guitar under your mattress in your bedroom and you wanted to bring it to church and play and sit on the front and play, you could play. And if you was out of tune, nobody scolded you for it, because the Bible said make a joyful noise. It didn't say it had to be a pleasant noise. You see what I'm saying? And so I just learned from everything around me. And now that I'm at the level I'm at now, I'm getting to hang out with, I've become really good friends with, folks like Tommy Emmanuel, and we've jammed together, and he's like in the stratosphere, but I've actually got to play with him, and I know I can't play like him, but I know I can play some good rhythm to back him up, and so that's why I smile and I don't get nervous like I did when I was boxing. The reason I got into boxing was my uncle was a professional boxer, and I always looked up to him, and whatever he did, I wanted to do too. And so I took up boxing, and it started out just punching the bag in the garage, but then I had a fight, and I won my first fight by knockout, and I just kind of got the bug, and it just kept snowballing, and the next thing I knew, I was the number 29 ranked middleweight in the whole world. The highlight of my career was when I got to fight on national television against the great Roberto Duran, and I hung with him as best I could, but I learned there's a difference between being good at something and being great at something. And he took me to school. After 6 rounds, I sat on my stool, and the doctor came into the corner, and I had a horrific cut over my eye, and my lip was split, and I was just bleeding so much that the doctor stopped the fight. But I got some punches in, and I busted his eye open. I'm real happy about that. And we actually had to ride to the hospital in the same ambulance. That is not a joke. Have you ever rode in an ambulance with Roberto Duran? It's a trip. He's known for his punching power, but his real strength, and I know from being in there, he was a defensive wizard. Trying to hit him with a clean punch was like trying to catch a greased pig. It's hard to do. And but I landed one good shot, and I hurt him. I know I did. I hit him with a left hook, but he was so good and he was so seasoned in what to do. When I hurt him, you know what he did? He grabbed me and he held me until the referee broke us up, because he gave him a few seconds to clear his head. And then after that, I couldn't hit him. He just said, okay, I'm gonna stay out of the way of the rest of them. And so I didn't land anymore after that. When I was a kid, I had a Roberto Duran poster on my wall. he was my hero. And I'll never forget when I met him. I was at the Tropicana Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, and I was standing at the bottom of an escalator, and there was a big old cluster of people up at the top of the escalator, and they kept on coming down. It was like a bunch of bees coming down. And then when they got to the bottom, all the people just kind of went to the side, his entourage did, and he was standing there. And he looked like Jesus standing there, man. And I was so intimidated by him because I didn't think he even knew me. And he walked right up to me and he goes, "Hello, Paul." And my heart was going like that. I was so nervous and in awe. And it was hard to keep my composure. Even when we went in the ring, I was just like, is this really happening? Because this is the guy I had the poster of that was my hero. And but I was coming in there to try to whoop him. But it just didn't happen that way because he was too good for me. All people that's great at something, like Tiger Woods with golf, Michael Jordan with basketball, Roberto Duran with boxing, they all have one thing that makes them great: the ability to relax under extreme pressure. Where I felt nervous and tense and the anxiety was actually sapping my energy, he was just like he was walking through the mall, man. His arms were hanging down. He was real loose and relaxed. He was in his element, and that's what made him great. He was able to just say, "Okay, I'm here. Here's a little white boy from Tupelo, Mississippi. I can whoop him pretty easy. Let's get this thing over with." That's kind of the way he thought. The main thing I lacked as a fighter was belief in myself. I don't have that problem in this arena. And a lot of it comes from growing up in church because, my father's a preacher, and part of being a preacher is not just talking about God. You got to be entertaining to the crowd. And I watched my dad, he'd be up in the pulpit and he had everybody right there. And when church was over, he wouldn't just leave. He'd go out into the foyer and shake everybody's hand before they left and tell them how much he was glad they came. And that's sort of how I am. And I got all that stuff from, being in front of people and watching my dad do it. And I've done it so much, and repetition also helps you get confidence. I've done it so much that I kind of know what to do, and I'm blessed and thankful for that. Right out of high school, I worked in a furniture factory, building love seats and recliners and sofas and stuff. But I would write songs with this other guy named Billy Maddox, who was a professional songwriter who taught me the craft of songwriting. And while I was working at the factory, for 12 years, 2 nights a week, I would meet with this guy and we'd write songs together. And another 2 nights of the week, I would play these songs we'd just written in a pizza restaurant in my hometown, Tupelo, Mississippi. And like a lot of people trying to make it back then, I was sending cassette tapes just to any and everybody. And Miles Copeland, the manager of Sting and the Police, got one of them. And he heard my songs. And he liked them enough that he flew down to Tupelo personally to the pizza restaurant I was playing in. Miles Copeland, all right. And I didn't know who he was. He's just some guy came in there with a suit, looked different from everybody else. And when I took a break from playing, he said, "Paul," he said, "I'm Miles Copeland." He said, I manage Sting and the Police, and I heard your songs, and I love them." He said, "I want to try to help you get a record deal and a publishing deal and all this kind of stuff." I was able to quit my day job. They gave me money. It was surreal. It was so amazing. I was green as grass. I didn't know anything except how to play the songs I wrote. Being a minister's son and Pentecostal, we weren't allowed to go to concerts. So I never had been to a concert. And the first one I ever attended in my life, I was the opening act for Sting in Nashville, Tennessee, in front of about 13,000 people. And a lot of people ask the obvious question. They say, "Were you nervous?" And I don't say this in arrogance, but I wasn't. You know why? Because I had been singing in front of people my whole life at church. And to me, 13 people and 13,000 felt like the same to me. I just looked at it as a larger congregation, and I was in my element. And I think the reason I've been able to succeed is what I said earlier. I believe in myself when I do this. I got a record deal, but when my record was coming out, the record company, A&M, was being bought out by a larger company, Interscope, and so in reality, my record release was not really a proper record release. And so I was floundering with nothing going on. And Miles said that Jeff Beck needed an opening act for his tour. And so I did a 30-date tour opening for Jeff Beck with just me and my acoustic guitar. I had no band, I had nothing but this, what you're seeing right now. And but strangely, it really worked, because when I would come out and open for Jeff, what I was doing was so out of nowhere, people liked it. And so it really helped start my career. But what would happen is, whatever city I played in with Beck or whoever, I could come back to that same city 6 months later, and some of those people that saw me as an opening act actually bought a hard ticket to see me. And so those opening slots helped me build my career and establish an audience. And guess what? After every show, I did what my father did. I went out to the merchandise table. If they bought something, I'd sign it. If they didn't buy anything, I'd still give them a hug and say, thank you for coming. And man, my dad being a preacher gave me so many skills on how to connect with people that I can't say thank you enough to him. When I'm at my best, what I do is I play an acoustic guitar and I sing melodic songs. That's what I'm trying to do all the time. I'm a communicator. I'm an empath. I think I'm pretty good at knowing how other people feel, and I think God blessed me with a talent to describe it in a song. And that's my style, you know. I don't know what class to put it in, but I'm just a guy that writes songs about what's happening. And I like to think all my songs, even though they might be something bad happening in my songs, I always give people a way out. If you listen to my songs, you'll hear, oh, there's something positive in there that gets you back. And that's what my songs do. And that's what I want to try to make them do. It means a lot to me to do what I do for a bunch of reasons. I get something out of it spiritually when I sing a song and I look at the crowd. And maybe I might sing a song that I see somebody got a tear running down their face that touched them in some kind of way, or made them smile, or I made them laugh, I made them feel something. And also, the obvious thing, it's enabled me to be a really good provider for my family. You know, I have 2 daughters and a wife, and I'm fortunate this far that anything they've ever needed, I've been able to get. You can't ask for much more than that, you know. And when I come home, you know, my wife acts like she likes me, and my kids act like they like me. And so what else you want? I would say, if you want to do what I do, you need to find a mentor, somebody that's better than you at what you want to do. If it's songwriting, find somebody that's really legitimate that can teach you the craft. Because a lot of people have talent, but if you don't have somebody to help you steer it in the right direction and show you what to do and what not to do, you won't go very far. So I always work around people that's better than you. That'd be my advice. Because, you know, it's easy to be around people you're better than them. There's no pressure in that. But when you got to bring it, it's kind of like when I fought Roberto Duran, right? I went in there with somebody better than me, and I learned something. And I came out of it a better man, you know. And everything I felt, every time I went into the ring, the main emotion I felt walking to the ring was fear. But I learned how to face my fears, and here we are. Sometimes when it feels like the weight of the world is sitting on top of my back, I like to go fishing. If I don't catch nothing, well, I'm okay with that. I sit on the bank with some sweet tea to drink, and I breathe in the morning air. When I look at the sky and the clouds rolling by, I believe there's a God somewhere. I don't have everything, but what do I really need? I've been such a lucky boy. I'm crying 2 tears of joy. Anybody who knows will tell you it ain't no picnic living with me. So many times I've needed forgiveness from friends and family. They cut a line.